I'd like to thank you for your consideration of me in this role and for the opportunity to answer your questions on child development. In response to your first question, two key development theorists are Jean Piaget and Lev Vygotsky. Piaget's major contribution was his four-stage cognitive process in children. In the theory, a child progresses through each stage as they explore the environment around them, initially only using the senses, developing until they are able to think logically and abstractly. In conjunction to this, Piaget also developed the assimilation accommodation model of growth, where schema are adapted via assimilation and accommodation of information until equilibrium is reached and the child's view of the world reflects the true environment. Vygotsky's theory was centered around the idea that cognitive development occurs through social and cultural processes. Vygotsky linked language to cognitive development and theorized that the introduction of language enabled the thought process of a child to change drastically. Vygotsky's theory of cognitive development also identified the need for a more knowledgeable other, or MKO. This MKO allowed a child to move from their current level of development through their potential level of development. Within his theory, scaffolding was an important concept. The scaffolding provided by the MKO must be appropriate to the current skill level in order to optimise development. In response to question 2, two moral development theorists are Lawrence Kohlberg and Jean Piaget. Jean Piaget used a cognitive approach to develop his theory of a two-stage process. The first stage of moral heteronomy was defined by children who view the rules as absolute. The second stage of moral autonomy occurs when children begin to realise that rules are not fixed and understand intention and fairness. Kohlberg extended the work of Piaget further, breaking down the stages of moral development. His theory encompassed 6 stages, in which a child develops from an egocentric justification of morality to a socially driven justification. He used hypothetical cases to determine the moral justifications of children to help establish these stages. In response to question 3, as educators, we are active players in the cognitive and moral development of children and as such must have an understanding of those development processes. Teachers play a strong role in guiding children through the stages of cognitive development by providing learning environments relative to the child's stage of development. Having an understanding of child development and being able to distinguish between stages enables teachers to create such an environment. In Vygotsky's theory, the MKO is a vital component in expanding the child's cognitive development. Being able to use the correct scaffolding to advance learning in a way that is most appropriate to the child will also result in effective learning. For example, a study found that there was potential for the hindrance of development when the highest level of scaffolding was used, demonstrating how complex child development can be. Moral development is aided by collaborative work among children and by establishing a sense of community in the classroom. By establishing this and also encouraging discussion of moral dilemmas, teachers can help guide their students through the stages of moral development. Teachers will also better understand the behaviour of students when faced with moral issues and be able to interpret the behaviour of their students. In response to question 4, knowing and understanding the theories of cognitive development in children will help me in my teaching practice, as I will be considering those in my lesson planning and execution, as well as in my evaluation and assessment of children. Having an understanding of cognitive development will enable me to teach material relevant in a format appropriate for the stage of development of the child in the class and provide the correct level of scaffolding to enhance their learning. The importance of these considerations was mentioned earlier. I'll also be able to identify if a child is slightly delayed or advanced in development and adapt accordingly. An understanding of moral development will enable me to understand the children and their behaviour with more clarity, enabling me to develop stronger student-teacher relationships, which have shown to benefit cognitive processing, academic achievement, and behaviour of children. In response to question 5, an example that I would use in the classroom of cognitive development theory would be in multiplication. I chose this topic as mathematics generally involves abstract thought, which, under Piaget's theory, does not develop until the age of 11. So how can I go about teaching younger children mathematical concepts? Taking into account his theory, in order to teach a grade 4 class multiplication, I must turn this abstract thought into something concrete that the children can physically see. To do this, I would take blocks to physically demonstrate multiplication. For example, laying out 3 rows of 7 blocks to demonstrate 3 times 7. Then adding an extra row of blocks to demonstrate 4 times 7. Students could then try this exercise on their own to help develop their skills in multiplication in a means that caters for their current state of development. In response to question 6, an example of how I would use an application of moral theory in my classroom would be in the discussion of texts being read in class. Both Piaget and Kohlberg's theories suggest that moral development is aided through interaction with peers and by the discussion of moral dilemmas. As discussion and response to literature is already a large part of the curriculum, I would use the same opportunity to investigate and nurture moral development. After a book is read in class, I would encourage discussion about the characters and the choices they made. For example, if I were in a grade 1 class reading Cinderella, I'd ask questions like, was it okay for Cinderella to break the rules and go to the ball? Should her stepmother have kept her locked away like that? Such questions of moral issue would draw opinions from the class and enable morality to be collaboratively discussed. I hope this has answered all of your questions. Thank you.